All right, I guess we're going to get started with our presentations. We want to thank you all for your hard work. As we did with the opening ceremony, thank you to the sponsors that were able to put this on, and we wouldn't be able to do what we have done without that for sure, as well as everybody that came and spent a good amount of time making their projects and submitting them. And we're going to get started now with our presentation. So the first one we have coming up is going to be high ed resources.
Yeah, so is high ed resources in the room right now? Yeah, y'all are free to come on stage and bring your laptop and plug it in so we can hear your presentation.
All right, we are Rainbow Sheep, and our members include Brittany up here, Slade, who is on Zoom right now, me, Hope Watson, and Michael. Go team. So our main problem was basically, if you're new to college, how can you make getting a quality education more accessible? So that was kind of like how we interpreted the theme of like access to education. So I guess we go to the next one. So the solution that we came up with, we tried to come up with a solution of something we could actually execute within 24 hours, was like to have a pragmatic goal, some kind of thing. So we basically made a site. We can go on. So the site, going with the theme of access to education, it basically goes through a data set of financial aid services and grants and scholarships and things that we found on other sites, including the ACC and some other resources. And the idea is that all of that information's out there and it's really overwhelming. You don't necessarily know like what applies to you specifically. And so the idea was we would have a form on a site that would take your data, like your major, your GPA, your goals, if you're in financial need, et cetera, and basically filter out that data for you directly. So on the back end, we collected some data from different sites and just made a couple of JSON documents that organize the data in a way that we could access. So it's kind of like it simulates it from fetching it from like an external API, but we couldn't find like a resource that already had all the information we wanted. So we kind of just collected it ourselves and put it into a JSON file. So to work with the data, the user basically fills out a form, and the form will submit a GET request that is run from the Express server we made. That action runs a method that processes the user data and will render the result for the user. So the views we ended up rendering with EJS was the solution we made, and it's rendered from Express, and the response comes out as EGS. And it's styled with Bootstrap, but mostly just handwritten CSS. So we also had like a little bit of extra time. So we also collected a different page on the site that has some other external learning resources that will help a student learn things on their own, or also provide them other financial resources that might apply to them. And so some goals, if we had more time, so kind of like stretch goals we would like to do is we'd like to modify the architecture to have more of like an MVC architecture, so it would be more scalable in the long run. Because right now we basically just have the views, and the other components like accessing the data and controlling it are kind of like all in one place. So to make it more scalable and workable, it would be better to have it in an MVC architecture. We would like to upload the JSON data into a Mongo database, include a lot more data because we couldn't put in as much data as we want, because it was kind of just like what we could collect. And to make it where someone could also have an option to add a resource themselves if they thought that was helpful. And I think that's it. So I guess we'll just like demonstrate the site. So it's not really fancy, but this is just an about page that highlights kind of like the purpose. And if you go up to the top, you can, if you click on the find resources, basically that's the form that I was talking about. So you could insert, like if you have like a 3.0 GPA or something and you're in need of financial assistance, you check that box. there's different majors because a lot of the different scholarships apply are major dependent. Some of them aren't at all. And yeah, I could try checking that and then submit, and some options should show up that are relevant to that data. So that immediately gets you like the ones that actually just directly apply to you. And if they don't, you'll just be linked. If there's not something within our very small data set that we have right now, it would link you to the resources page where you could find other educational resources to learn things about on your own. Like I like Scrimba. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried that, but it's kind of cool. Like it's helpful, free code camp, and then some other grants and scholarships and financial aid information that may be relevant to increasing your access to learning things either in college or just on your own. And I guess that's kind of it. So it was just a pragmatic solution.
Yeah, that was amazing. So I wanted to pass it on to any judges who have questions so y'all can answer them.
Good job by the team. Thank you for your presentation. And my question was about the website interface. Would that be also rendered on mobile, or is it just on a standalone browser?
So I tried to style it in a way that would kind of like flow dynamically so you could work with it on, different devices, if that answers that.
Okay, thanks.
If you like drag it across, it like resizes.
Oh, you can press the thing on the lower right or lower left to see like if it's mobily responsive over there.
Oh,
Oh,
like
I was just gonna ask, so this is getting like scholarship resources for students, correct?
yeah, the primary goal is to find financial resources based on information about the student.
I see. So I really like you guys' project, really good connection to the overall theme, really good prototype that you guys have set up so far. I was just wondering, does this tap into an API, or is this something that you guys collected on your own and you have set up in a backend or on a database?
So we just have a couple of JSON data files from that. Basically, me and Slade incorporated a JSON file that we kind of put our own data that we found. Like we did some research and found some sites because we couldn't find something that readily had like all of this kind of information available in a large scale. So we just came up with a small data set, maybe like 20 to 30 different opportunities in a JSON file in our own repository.
I see.
But ideally, you'd find like a lot more external data sources because it's really small right now.
Yeah. Maybe for the future, you guys could do like a Python web scraper to get that data. But really good project. I really like that.
Thank you.
You might have kind of mentioned this. I'm just curious, what was your biggest challenge when you were either coming up with the idea or developing your product?
This was my second time working with like a backend framework. So I feel like it was like I was really excited to work with one because like I wanted more practice and I thought this was a good opportunity to try to learn more about it. And so that was cool. I think the initial problem, I was kind of like disappointed that we couldn't find a larger data set personally, because I think that would be more useful. And then I think just like maybe the challenge of making sure that you have something that you can actually build was kind of like, yeah, we had to like scale down maybe some larger ideas to something we felt like we could actually accomplish within this time period, if that makes sense.
And any other judges have questions? Online judges, feel free to unmute as well. But if not, then yeah, great job, team. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you.
So yes, this is Codle. We did debate whether it should have an E between the D and the L, but we decided this is a little bit easier. So our main inspiration was that we wanted to have something fun, and like we kind of wanted to like stretch the theme a little bit because it was like about access of education, but we really wanted to like have some way to like basically make education fun. And so there's a lot of resources out there about like coding and like learning how to code and stuff like that. But there's nothing like in little bite-sized pieces to like just get you. It's like a miniature like leak code that you can do like every day. And obviously our main inspiration was Wordle, the game Wordle. So ideally the project would be that you would have somewhat of a, we basically, I'll just play the game. So we're prompted with our first question. We have a function here and we just ask you to tell us what would return from this function. So for this example, I will pick the answer randomly, 8. And so we're prompted with another question. And this question, the first answer I selected was wrong. And so we're prompted with this and we're asked to determine what value will be returned. And we'll go BizBuzz. And we're prompted with another question. And this is basically the same thing. We're going to be prompted with 5 different questions every day. And at the end of it, you're asked if you want to like share your progress or share your score with everybody. You can click this little Twitter link and it will open up your Twitter and like share your data that you save throughout the day. So I missed the first and the third question and it shares it automatically. And this was written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript by me, Callie, and Dina. But some of the challenges that we've run into were, for one, none of us were very comfortable in JavaScript, and so like we pretty much had to like figure this out as we went along. The other thing that was like really challenging was to like try to like fit into the theme and like the prompt. And I think our main like concept was that we wanted to like have something fun and interactive, and just something that you could like have in little bite-sized pieces per day. And yeah, thought it is working at the moment. And so like ideally you'd want to like have something like this like every single day and like populate like, new questions. And we kind of like designed it so that you could have like variability in your types of questions. So you can like upload like different little snippets and like ask different types of values here. Like you wouldn't have to only do a function. It could be something else. And yeah, that's what we got.
In case you can't tell, everyone's clapping in here, but I'm going to pass it on to judging questions.
Cool.
Actually, first is can you hear me there? Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
First is a compliment. I like having these kinds of exercises for my programming classes. They need more of them, as many as they can do. So any kind of drill and practice like this, I consider an access to education that's not what a lot of people were thinking of in terms of getting through web pages or to, transportation or things like that. This is an access to the actual learning experience in a very personal way. The one thing I wanted was for it to tell me the right answers at the end. I mean, Wordle will tell me what the right thing was, if I get all the way through and don't get it. I missed some, but I wanted to know what the right things were. So that's the thing I would toss on to the end of it. But I really like the idea.
So, what's funny is I actually wrote this up last night and it was working, but I did something and I accidentally broke it like right before the competition. And so I had to take it out. And so I had the actual answers for the questions in the modal at the end, but I broke it somehow. And I had to scrap it.
Dare I mention the words version control?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's all from me.
Thank you.
Hi. I noticed from the code base that you had rendered the quiz questions, as images. What was the rationale of doing them as images instead of rendering them as text?
That's a good question. The reason I did it as images was just because we found like a nice editor just for these little like text, or for these little these code blocks. We found like a really nice like little website that like formatted them and like put them in like really nice. The coloring is off on my specific monitor, but it looks a little bit different on like other people's monitor. But yeah, so like we found this like nice little website that like formatted this stuff for us. So that's kind of why we went that route. And plus like we made it look like really nice. Instead of just doing like something like text, but no like real reason. It is interesting because like we wanted to like, at first when we designed it, we wanted to have like maybe like a blank spot in like this where this variable num is, and say like, hey, what's missing here that's like would make this function work properly, or something like that. And so it was like a thought that we had about like not doing an image.
I would like to mention I like the image idea because it prevents someone from like copying it into an actual program and trying to run it themselves, and actually makes them think about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, we try to tailor the questions so that you don't have to like write them out. Like it should just be like something that you can just like do in your head mostly.
Any other questions, judges? Oh, you want to ask? Hey, go ahead.
Hi, so I had a question about the code input. Eventually, would it turn into something that is randomized daily, or would a user always have to input the code problem? If that made sense.
Are you saying the questions would they be prompted differently, or are you saying like the answers?
Yeah, because much like Wordle chooses a random word that's 5 letters long. For this, you would have to have somebody either choose what the code is going to be, or would it eventually become self-automated?
It could be, but we'd have to design like all of these like questions beforehand. There is like a question of like the concern of like how to scale it, but for now, like it would be sort of difficult just because we'd have to like think of all these like coding questions, which may not be a problem. But yeah, like it is basically on the back end, it's just a list of images, and I just match the input based on like that index of the image.
Okay.
So it is possible, but it would just have to be like you'd have to manually do it, which could be tedious.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Hello. I just have a comment that I wanted to make. Jacob and I, we were playing through Codle, and we had so much fun playing through this. We spent like a solid like 15 minutes just playing on this. One thing that we did want to see, if there were more work to be done on this project, we kept going back and refreshing because we wanted to try the ones that we got wrong. So maybe giving the user a chance to be able to actually work through what they got wrong and try entering the answer again instead of moving on to the next problem, because I got one of them wrong and I was curious. I was like, what did I do? I want to go back and actually retry and get it right.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting idea. I just want to take a guess, but was it that multiply Python, like 2 function one?
Oh, yes.
Just kidding. That one is so incredibly tricky. And I was like, even when I like wrote it out, I was like expecting a different answer, and I got another answer, and I was like, wow, what the?
Oh, wow.
That did not make sense. So, okay, so yeah, okay, that's an interesting idea for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Codle.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Next up, we have Appraisal Helper. The intention of this project is to educate the user in property appraisals. We strive to make a program that will empower the user when it comes to a topic that is typically considered difficult. So is Appraisal Helper in the room?
First, I'd like to say hello, my name is Alfonso, and my partner Eric and I make up the Boom Squad. Now, the idea about this is our idea of increasing access to education is a Python program that can help you increase your knowledge on tax evaluations and home market values. As we all know, the market values have significantly increased here in the Austin area. Like many of us who own homes, I too received a property value assessment last month and was profoundly shocked at what the county appraised my property at, because I know my assessment directly correlates with the amount of taxes I have to pay at the end of the year. And now, what if I told you that we have a program that can help you significantly lower your taxes at the end of the year, and it will be less expensive to what a property tax lawyer will charge you? For instance, their fees are probably 40 to 60% of taxes that you save by using their service. Well, we have a program that can do just that. Our program is designed to empower the user by taking the current file given by the appraisal district, go through all the countless pages of data so you don't have to. Our program educates the user in a topic that's typically considered a difficult topic, but it doesn't have to be difficult. This program will help remove a lot of red tape and will help lower your taxes significantly. And you can do it all from the comfort of your home. I mean, who really doesn't like to save money, right? Now, what is up on the screen is Travis County appraisal evidence that was sent to me. And as you guys can see, it's a 13-page document, and it's a long, complicated file that gives you no direct correlation. It doesn't tell you how they got their numbers. It doesn't tell you exactly how they did it. So with this program would actually run through it, and using these values in this list that it's currently on the screen right now, and it will help you argue, or it will help you protest your taxes with the appraisal office, as what Eric will demonstrate right now.
Yeah, so we wrote this. We used multiple, as you can see here, libraries and modules to get this to work. And so I'm gonna go ahead and hit run. And so it goes through, and it's kind of slow right now. We have not had a chance to optimize it, but it's gonna run through and ask you to upload the PDF. And then it will go in and find the address on the form. And it'll ask you if the square footage on that form is correct, which is 2,505. And then if it's correct, you would just hit yes. And then now it's going to run through, and it goes data, and it pulls out that table, and then it creates a CSV file that's going to pop up over here in a second. And then we use that to run through and basically pull out only that last table we got, the big one with all the houses. And then it goes through and calculates the 4 that are within a range of about 100 or minus 50 plus 50 square foot of that on there. And it finds the 4 closest to that. And then it calculates the median down here. And then it just gives you this is the median home value calculated based on your input. In the future, we would like to be able to, for one, optimize it and figure out where it's slowing down. So much, it clearly is in the middle there. And then also potentially being able to add more data as far as telling people their tax liability and information like that on how to contest their property tax. And then Alfonso.
Yeah, so currently our program is in the beginning stage. So this is just a prototype based upon the allowed time and the funding that we have. However, eventually we would like to expand it to where we can filter out more options, and even give you a rough estimate of your potential tax rate according to last year's. That way you have a rough estimate. And it would, in the long run, it would help a majority of people, especially here in the Travis County, because we're having such high value rates that are going up, and this will help you argue with the appraisal district, and you're using their information against them, and they don't have a choice but to accept it. And this concludes our presentation.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it on to judges for questions.
Yeah, so I think I might have missed it, but I'm not exactly. So great project overall. I think it's really cool that you're having some sort of algorithm to find a counter appraisal to negotiate with the appraisal officer. That's really cool. What I wanted to ask is that what sort of algorithm do you use to calculate the counter appraisal price of your home?
So the algorithm is, what they'll do is they'll tell you that they'll pick 4 of the median values around you. However, they get to pick whichever 4 they want. What we did is, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but we chose the first 4. What we did is we actually picked the lowest values of the actual houses, of the properties around you that have the similar square footage. We chose the ones with the lowest values, and then we divided it by 4 because that's what they use.
The houses around you within what radius?
It's I think it's a 50-mile radius. I think that's what they say.
Yeah, and the PDF
miles?
you would get from the Travis County, they're going to provide you all the houses they're looking at because they're recently sold houses. So that PDF he got was directly from Travis County, so you would get that from them.
I see. So this, are you using like Travis County's like API to find like home prices or what, like different parameters?
We're
So
using, I'll go
go
for it, Eric.
okay,
So-
yeah, so they're providing the PDF, like here, I can pull it back up. And so like this PDF on screen is what they provided to him. And so it already has like the sale date and price. And so what we're doing is pulling out that data from the PDF inputted by the user and going through that data. So my understanding is that it's going to be the city or the county of Travis or wherever will provide you all these houses within. There's some specific mileage, I'm sure, but I'm guessing it's within Travis County. And so it's going to go through and have like the sale date and the price, and then we're going based on square footage, and that's how we're finding like the 4 that we're picking.
I see. So what do you use to scan through the PDF?
So we are using several things. We use what is it? PyPDF 2, the library that's to like count all the pages on there to make it easier to work through it. And then the primary method that we use to get like all the text out of the PDF is PDF Plumber, another library. And that takes all the text out. And then from there, we used Tabula to specifically pull out the table data from that, which Tabula is a like Java, it's like a Python Java wrap of Tabula for Java. So it required you to have Java on there too. And then so that pulled out the tables for us. And then we used the CSV to go through that data.
I see. How do you guys tie this into education specifically, or access to education?
This ties into access to education because so many people do not know anything about how the appraisal office does this. And we believe that this is a flaw, that we should be able to access this. Everybody should be able to access all the information instead of just looking at a PDF and not wondering how to read it.
Also, it ties into like finances because either I realize Alfonso's kind of the rare case of a college student with a home, but like parents for sure, like you could end up paying a ton in taxes, and that could definitely take away from parents being able to help their children get into college, especially people who are already working on a very small amount of money. So this could be very helpful for them.
Okay, I may have either missed what I was supposed to be seeing, or you had mentioned, okay, are you putting together a CSV file from the PDF file? Is that what I'm understanding correctly? And then you are reading in and you're getting, yeah. And so you're presenting rather than, okay, so then you're presenting to the user whether or not they're looking at correct information. Is that right? And
yeah,
some results of it. But okay, the thing you said a second ago that caught me in terms of the application of education is you said they need to be able to do this without knowing how to do it or how they do it. And it would seem to me that's the educational aspect you'd want, is to tell them to make the people know what the tax department is doing, not how to get around them without knowing what they're doing. Am I sense with that?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So I would suggest there would be more explanatory information than just here you go, you can get them with this stuff, but basically some larger piece of information they could carry into that fight.
If you go up to the appraisal officer and you say, "Here's my computer program, give me a lower tax rate," I don't think that would.
Yeah,
and definitely if we had more time, we were planning to make an actual like UI with more information in there than just like the basic text, and so that's definitely something we would like to add. That's definitely a great idea.
Right now with this code, we just wanted to make sure it would execute and it would throw you an output of the number. Yes, I agree. Having more text on it was the general idea, but we didn't have enough time to actually complete it and polish it up as much as we would like.
No, well, sure. It's just the one day. I'll add the one comment. I used to work in community development. We'd have killed for an application like this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because another note I want to add, when I was speaking to actual appraisal, an appraisal would go through the 86 list on page 9 and 10 of that PDF, and they would manually pick it out. This program itself does that for you.
Oh, well, that's Appraisal Helper. All right, so our next project is Career Focus Recommendation App. So the description is knowing what you want to specialize in is an important part of your education. This proposed app will help match a student user to different potential careers.
Hello. While they get this set up, I will introduce us. We are Team Flare. This is Lucian, this is Nathan, this is Dan, and I am Alex. And we didn't have a snappy name, we just have a description. It's a career-focused recommendation app. It recommends you a career focus.
Thank you. We're done. I practiced for this.
So, a lot of students don't really know what they want to specialize in, or they may not even know what specializations are available. And being able to specialize your education, that's what electives are for, is a very important part of a college education. So we wanted an application that could help a student figure out what are the options, what could they specialize in. Next slide, please. So our goal was to create, like I said, this application that matches students to prospective career paths. And we're specifically focusing on the technology and computer science sector because one, that's what we're doing. And two, if we tried to scope this out to every possible specialization and every possible major, we would be here for years. So the features of what we've designed, we wanted to identify some characteristics that people within different parts of the tech field have. So for our example, we have chosen building, thinking, creating, helping, persuading, and organizing. And then in a final product, we would have a machine learning based predictive matching the characteristics of a user to the average characteristics of a person actually working in that field. Next. And we would want it to be free to use for students. We were considering a way of funding it or subsidizing it via sharing the information with educational partners. Has anybody ever gotten like 15 emails a day from recruiters at like St. Ed's or ASU or whatever? Yeah, ASU Online, they get me. So instead of doing just sending out spam to everybody, we could potentially share information. So if a college has a pathway about, project leading, you could, say, here are some people who match well with project leader. Would you like to recruit them? And we could maybe obtain funding that way. So our solution to this problem in a slightly more technical description is we start off by being given a data set of actual real life professionals in the field and their career interest characteristics. So the average coder has this of the 6 skills. The average Scrum leader has this of the 6 skills. What we wrote is a matching algorithm to match a user's 6 skills to the closest matching average for each of the jobs and to display which ones they match the best. So the output would be optimally matched specializations based on what this user, they would be taking the same characteristics assessment that we would be using for people out in the field. Of course, we didn't actually have time to gather all of this data personally, so we kind of just ballparked it. But what we would do is we would have career professionals taking this test, getting metrics, and then we would be applying it to users. All right, so the matching algorithm, that's the bit that I had to work on personally, so I know things about this. So our mock implementation, the one that you actually looked at, judges, is a statistical methodology based on the idea of number of standard deviations from the mean. In a future real-life implementation, it would much more likely be done with machine learning. Next. So both of them start with a population and existing data. Like I've said, the average coder looks like this in those 6 scores. Next. So in the mock implementation, the mean and the standard deviation and something called z-scores are calculated. So the mean and standard deviation of a population are just measures of what's the most average person and how far away do you usually, like give or take how many. then in the machine learning methodology, you would be training your ML program on these numbers. You would be letting it get a feel for what kind of person goes to what kind of job. Then in both of them, a new user would open the app, they would take the assessment, they would say, here are my results. And then in my implementation, we're calling it an error function, but it could also just be called a matching function. Essentially, it is a way of displaying how close your score falls to the mean score of a person in a job. And we did this for all scores, for all jobs, and we came up with how close you are to the average person who actually does this job. So in a machine learning implementation, you would use your model that you had trained it on. It would be able to predict possibly more accurately than what I have come up with. It would be able to predict how much of a fit for a certain job you are. All right, I'll pass it to Nathan.
So for the purposes of our mock implementation, we have a function map. So yeah, you can't really see that dot. So from the start of the application, you would see a title screen, and then the application would show you several different queries for questions that would be input into a trait finder algorithm that would determine the numerical values for each trait. So then those career interest traits would be compared with the empirical data collected from actual workers in the force. Then that is compared using our matching algorithm, and that algorithm generates the career matching list, and that resulting list is output to the user. For our prospective future implementation, we would add additional features such as a sign-in and account creation, as long as using a machine learning model trained with the tech worker data set. And then also, once the career match data is generated, we would report that to educational partners to be able to subsidize some of the costs to keep our program free and accessible to users.
And now we have a short demo of what the graphical user interface would look like. So here, this is what you would see after you take your survey. Basically, it lists different jobs in tech that are most suited to you. So we're just using like a dummy data set right now, just to show off the UI itself. So given these particular traits, computer engineer would be your closest match as a career. And then it goes on and on using Alex's algorithm to calculate which careers would best suit you. Of course, this is like super simplified compared to what the experts would, and like, of course, the psychologists and experts. Yeah.
I would like to add that we were not able to link these two pieces functionally, but if you look in the code, as the judges have done, you'll be able to see that I did write an algorithm that produces this type of output. We just weren't able to get it successfully to match into the GUI application. Yeah. But if you look at the code, you can see we create these numbers, and we could display these numbers if we could get the link in the chain that puts them together. So we're not just bluffing completely.
Yeah. I heard horrors about C++ and GUIs, and they're true. So as a summary, our main vision here is to simplify the process of figuring out what the heck you want to do in life as a computer science student. And in the end goal, we would be using industry recognized like personality assessments and stuff like that to gather our data, make sure it's legit, not some weird pseudoscience or something, or as legit as possible, and then we would use this, we would specify it to computer science students, of course, and then ideally have and train this machine learning algorithm on that data to, optimize it, make it, try to be as accurate as it can, or as helpful to the user as possible. And therefore we can provide and refine options for computer science students for the courses they can take, the specializations they want to go into, what languages they like, and anything that a student would want to know or be curious about as to where the heck do I get started? Where do I want to go with this? Any questions?
I do appreciate y'all's presentation, but how do I get the ASU emails to stop emailing me?
I believe there is a block function in your program of choice.
Thanks, guys. Good job with your presentation on your project. I have I guess an open-ended question, might not be pertaining to your implementation, has to do with the data acquisition. Do you guys know how, are there like data sets that you can harvest? Like there was this idea about 5-6 years ago that some people illegally harvested Facebook profiles. So are there like legit psychometric data acquisition processes in place if somebody wants to do for legitimate purposes, academic purposes?
That's a great question, sir. The extent to which we were able to research this, we went to several different career and personality assessment sites, and we took their quizzes and we validated whether or not the source of those quizzes and those questions and the resulting traits were matched up with stuff like the references you saw in the presentation, or Myers-Briggs, or any of the other industry recognizable standards for characteristic traits. Now, as to your specific question about where we would get the data, once you were ready to scale this up, you would need to generate that on your own. I'd hate to think that we, if we were the ones that were doing it, would do it in a sketchy fashion, but these institutions already have large data sets that create personality traits matched to jobs. So hopefully we'll be able to go through the process with experts in these methodologies to create those data sets to benefit the student population we're hoping to advantage through this. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
All right, I have a quick question. So Dan mentioned researching similar sites to your project. Compared to those sites, what would you say that your project does uniquely or differently than those sites? What does it really improve on?
So the sites Dan mentioned, those are sites that only offer a personality type assessment. We extend the personality type, or it's more than just personality, but that's a word we'd recognize. It extends that personality type into what career would match it. And we didn't find anything that actually extends from the personality into your actually recommended careers, especially not one that was geared towards students or available for free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I took a similar, is this on? Okay. To add on to that question, I took a similar like test at the end of high school that was like, oh, figure out what you want to do in life, take a career test. And it just told me to be a computer scientist, or like that was almost the extent of what it told me to do, right? So our project does specifically focus on trying to narrow that down, because there's a lot in this field to like, you can dedicate your whole life to one tiny thing and you'll be great at it, but there's just so many things to pick from, right?
So I noticed that you're matching based on traits that these employees are exhibiting, but is there going to be a functionality that matches with job satisfaction? Because you could match with all of the traits of a DBA, but if all of them are miserable, you're going to be miserable too.
Good point. We did not actually specifically think about that. I suppose we can add it to the list of, in a final implementation, we would try to account for job satisfaction. So thank you. You've made our project better.
Any other questions? I have one question. So say someone takes this test and then they get like a 1 on computer scientist, like wouldn't that deter them from like pursuing that career?
So you don't score a 1 on computer scientist, you score a 1 on, can you go back to that slide? You'd score a 1 on something like, here, on something like creating. So maybe you're not like the creative artsy type, maybe you're the logical type. If you score a 1 on creating, that just means that you're more suited to roles that require a logic-minded brain. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're bad at something, you're bad at the whole field, or you should be deterred from the whole field. It just means that you're much better suited to, maybe not that, but because there's such a wide variety of things to do, even within computer science, there's going to be a place for everybody if they've decided computer science is what they want to do. Because remember, we're kind of specializing within that.
Yeah, is it possible that this could be used in the interview process and then that could like gatekeep some students from getting that job?
I rather hope that our technology would not fall into those hands. I believe that if we created it as an application, it would be an application on a device, and the information on it would be known to the user and potentially to educational recruiters, not to job and career recruiters, because remember, this is about accessing the education that you would like. So maybe it could be taken by like a second year student to determine what electives would be. Yeah.
So I'd like to add something to Alex's comment real quick. The only thing that this is going to do is provide you an output that shows you what you're predictively matched to at the most optimal rate. It doesn't tell you what your performance is in any real sense. It's just going to tell you you're more suited to be a Scrum Master than a programmer or an algorithm developer over something else, a web developer. So there's nothing in here that indicates what your potential is or what your performance is in any sense of the word. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
More questions?
Yeah, good job clearing that up, Dan. I was gonna say something along those lines because I was thinking like I really like this project. It's pretty cool to have something to give you a bit of guidance. Though my only main criticism with this is philosophical, for the main fact that I don't think like a quiz or something along those lines would tell me what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I think that's something that you find through introspection and through actually going through different like fields and actually trying stuff out, right? But I was a bit curious to see like what careers is this built out to produce results for?
Hey, Lucian, could you pull up that little example again? All right, let me see if I can read off the screen. So we've only used sort of an example set of jobs, but we would, yeah. It's mock data, but we've picked some jobs that we think, might be a specialization: computer engineer, web developer, system administrator, that kind of thing. And in a final product, we would perhaps refine these or have more of them. And the idea is more to present options that might be good for you rather than say, this is what you're doing the rest of your life. Because I hear you. I don't want a test to say what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I don't know what my MBTI is and I don't care. But if you're confused and you don't know what you want to do with yourself, that's where we want to come in. Not like, oh, you have to do this to determine your future forever. Just, I'm not really sure what's out there. Maybe this could tell me what I might be good at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Some sort of like guidance or advice.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that like this is like almost entirely a proof of concept idea. Like we're not pretending at all to, that's why we're using mock data, because both on the input and output side of things, we're not the experts here at all. All we do is write code, right? So we're not trying to like tell you what to do for the rest of your life. We already covered that. But yeah, like this is almost entirely proof of concept. Go ahead.
So one thing I noticed is I know that this is only based on one specific thing because you specifically talked about being swamped if you tried doing data from multiple different sources. But wouldn't there also be the idea that presenting all that data to somebody would also swamp them? So if you say you do put in all the data for multiple career paths of not just computer science, but maybe you jump into mathematics and engineering and space development.
So I think maybe it was Nathan that talked about this earlier, but the key here is that it is scalable. What we decided to do in this context is to keep it focused on CS. And the goal was to be able to present niche opportunities that people may not know exist, so we don't exclude potential career paths. But to answer your question, you could theoretically scale this out, because if you are using a machine learning algorithm, the overhead necessary to implement any number of different careers and any number of subject matters or subject fields would be relatively easy, as long as your expert inputs weren't swamped, as you put it. Okay. So I think you could scale this, but our focus for the purpose of this presentation was on CS. I don't know if that answers your question or not. But.
It sort of does. My other part would be, how would you prevent the user from becoming overwhelmed by information like just the information coming at them as you scale it up?
I think that's subject to user feedback. Right now, we've just kind of given every matching basis here, but you could restrict it to a top 3 or a top 5, or give them the options to look across a vast number of fields. It's up to the user to basically use this either with a counselor or to their own satisfaction.
Good. Awesome. We'll move on to our next presentation, which will be Mentor Match.
Who here has had a mentor in their life, whether as a child or as an adult? It's actually a trick question because we've had mentors here throughout this entire experience. Sorry about that. So mentors can help all of us. There's several barriers to education that exist in the world, and mentors can address a lot of them. So unmet needs that block learning, for instance, think of these as like, if anybody's into psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have hunger, you have physical abuse can happen in families, mental abuse can happen in families. Mentors can help with that. Lack of motivation, mentors can definitely help with that, helping kids to see a vision for their future. Lack of foundation of knowledge. So we often think about the difference between testing and retention, right? Mentors can help with retention so that you have a foundation to learn in the next step in your knowledge base. And then lastly, lack of quality instruction to support learning. Mentors can obviously reinforce the things that educators teach kids to kind of create a backstop for them to avoid slipping through the cracks, essentially. According to beamentor.org, it's one of the largest mentor organizations, at least in Los Angeles. People with mentors tend to be more likely to enroll in college, over 50% more. They're more likely to volunteer and more likely not to use drugs. And nearly all of them, this is interesting, have avoided gangs, stayed in school, and did not become a teen parent. So mentors can have a huge impact on people's lives. But how do we connect people with mentors? It'd be interesting if we had like a website or some type of, I don't know, database to identify some mentors for people. What do you think?
Yeah, so here we have our solution to the problem. We have created Mentor Match.
Thank you for the technical difficulty help.
Don't give presentations often. Here is our Mentor Match website that we have created. So this will take you right down here. We have a form here that will allow you to enter in a few different criteria. And what you enter here will then query our database. So say someone referred to you and you want to look for a specific mentor, you can just type in their last name here. And here we have our results for one of our mentors. So say you don't know any mentors yet, but you are interested in math. So you can go ahead and search that. And in our database of mentors, we have quite a few. So say your language that you're fluent in is Spanish. We also have a language filter that you can then also query, and this will narrow down your search results here. And then you can choose from a few different of our mentors that we have. So that is mainly the database that we have. Our languages that we focus on was English and Spanish, and we have a few different varieties of subjects. You can go in and search for English. We have an English. Some of our mentors, like this one here, if we just search her, do have a couple different subjects that they can mentor in. And if you want someone that is local to you, we have listed also their zip code. So you have all of their information here, and that is how you are able to search for your mentor. Long goals, we we wanted to include we thought it'd be cool to include for each mentor, a local library. So that would be a cool, safe place for them to be able to meet up. We wanted to also have an option to search for in-person or a virtual meeting. That way you could choose which one was the easier option for you. Unfortunately, using the database was a lot more difficult than we anticipated. I think yesterday at 6:30, we finally were able to, we had a working website and we had a database that we could query, and we couldn't get it together. So I think it was like 9:30 this morning, we finally were able to connect the two. And honestly, that's the core of our project, is querying our database. So we wanted to have a lot more functionality with our searching and a little more information of choices that you could choose from your mentor, how to contact them. But so far we have your connections. The important part we wanted to have was your subject and your language, because we feel like those are the two main reasons where people can struggle and how we can really help.
Awesome. We will send it up to our judges for any questions.
I just want to say we've got all of these other accesses to educational tools and financial resources, and that it's really nice to see something that's actually giving students access to a human being, which if we really talk about AI, the real AI are the human beings that they can talk to. And students need that. Probably, in my experience, that underlines, that fills in all the holes for all these other things they can be. When you're talking about whether or not people could understand the information or other things like that, you can't substitute for people in this kind of situation. And it's an extraordinary valuable resource for education, I think.
I think it's great too, because being in class, a lot of times I think students are afraid to speak up. And so being on a one-on-one relationship, I think they can learn so much more and not feel embarrassed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's from a teacher's point of view, that's what's very frustrating, because you want students to open up to you. And you're always the authority. And there's always that sense that I don't want to look stupid, or I don't want to, whatever. And we will take any help we can get to get around that.
It's very easy to look at this project and say, oh, it's just a database and a form. That isn't the value that this project is bringing to me. I see here an idea that is worth way more than the implementation.
Yeah, I really like this project a lot. Liked how you guys had a working prototype, had everything set up, and like you said, the implementation works really nicely with your idea.
Yeah, I also gotta agree. I mean, I really like the website layout. I think I must have missed like what database you kind of use. Like, was it just MySQL? Okay, got it.
We used the website that Rudy mentioned. We used, and one of our struggles was using the free version.
Right.
We were trying to use Python and separately connect our database, and it only, like, you have to use the paid version to do remote connections. And it took us a long time to figure that one piece out.
Oh, that must have sucked.
So, yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, that's the database we used.
Cool. All right. Oh, also, I was wondering, like, what would be the idea of searching up like a specific last name? Because like, what if you just don't know any of the mentors that you want to look up? Like, because like Gomez was kind of random, I feel like. You guys just chose that last name, right? Like it was, or do you guys know a mentor named Gomez, like with the last name?
Database with random people, but you don't have to know a mentor's last name. Right. You can literally just type in math here.
Yeah, because I was actually just typing in anything random when I was trying this out. Yeah.
We definitely on our queries could fine tune that and have a better like catch to say like no mentors with that name exist, or like another enhancement is adding more languages. So say you typed in a different language, we could have a prompt that says, we're constantly adding new mentors. Please check back next month, or add them to a wait list and we can send them an email. There's a lot more querying features that we had ideas for.
Yeah, definitely.
But we needed the working prototype.
Yeah, of course.
The other thing is early on, we kind of envisioned like a full database that would store, for instance, like registration information for a student, and then we'd be able to store that information and use it later on for marketing or outreach, something like that. So they may hear about a tutor, a mentor, the person's last name to be able to search. In that circumstance, we just didn't get that far with the enhancements.
Right. Got it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Sure.
I have a question. Did you check to see if this already exists? And if so, what did you find? Because this sounds like an idea many people will have tried to implement.
Honestly, no. Didn't really look to see if it existed. I kind of had this idea and we all kind of liked how it worked. And I know there's like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. There are programs like that. But what I really liked about this, which we had another member who was in person with us yesterday, who grew up and his family spoke Spanish. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had this language filter on here. So that way, if your parents speak Spanish and your homework is in English, they can't help you. So that was one of the main things that we wanted to focus on with this. And I personally don't know of a program specifically that caters to that. But yes, there are definitely mentor programs. I didn't specifically research that first. But yeah, that's what the focus we wanted to go with.
All right. So it sounds like you have something unique to lean on, and I really appreciate that. And thank you for your honesty.
Thank you.
Any other judge questions?
I actually have a comment on you brought this up. You said that you had a teammate that was Spanish speaking, and that's how you had the idea to add another language. I saw that and that really touched my heart, because I will sometimes go and I'll teach at dual language schools, even like in Austin. Sometimes we won't realize the disparity between minorities. And when I'm teaching at these schools, I will teach children who sometimes know very little English. And as someone who speaks English and not Spanish, that it is difficult to make that connection. But even then, I see their parents come in and their parents only speak Spanish. So for them to be able to find something, a mentor, something that's a resource to them, who actually is able to speak their language and connect with them, like that is very, very valuable. And I genuinely really appreciate that you did that. I think this is really addressing a barrier, especially in Austin, that we see that is very influential in education, especially. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mentor Match. It's not easy being green. And their description is be able to use ACC computer resources remotely. So yeah, come on up.
All right. Hello. Just as an introduction, my name is Nick. This is Todd. We have Dylan and William here. Just as clarification, our project is not actually called It's Not Easy Being Green. That was our team name. We put it in the wrong place. As a bit of an introduction before we start explaining the project, I just wanted to explain that going into this, our plan was never to actually make like a working program or to actually code anything complicated. Our idea was more to just present an idea as the project. So just expect that going into it. And looking at the theme of increasing access to education, we looked at the idea of increasing access to like computer resources. And I'm going to pass it off to Dylan now to talk about that specifically.
Hello. So a problem that occurs with a lot of students is that they don't have the current tech to complete all of their assignments. For example, they don't have a laptop that can program on, so they don't have enough money to upgrade their computers, and the only time that they can work on their projects is in school with computers that can actually handle it. And computer labs tend to have the up to date tech, and sometimes they aren't used all the time. Like, for example, in the accelerator, there's a lot of computers that go unused and students don't use them. And I always go in there and I always see that there's always a section where the computers aren't being used and they could be used for something else. And yeah.
Okay, so basically we have all these computer labs and all these in our campuses and various computers that are not being used. So an increasing number of remote students. So we're just thinking the solution is design a system to schedule access to and distribute these computer resources. So students, in remote locations, or maybe if they don't have the correct machine or the correct software or whatever, can use these resources remotely. So basically, when these labs are unoccupied or not by classes or in-person students, then we basically give the students the ability to access that through a virtual machine. And then the students can use also their online portal to access that and schedule access to a virtual machine also. So.
All right. After working out the concept for the first 23 of the 24 hours we had, we created some pseudocode and we did some junk code. You guys can't see it here, but we submitted it on DevPost. They might see an image of it up there. And created a functional mock Python program. You can see it up there, hopefully not too well. And the terminal output for it to kind of illustrate what it's doing on the back end. The user, of course, is going to see some kind of abstracted UI, and ideally it would have some sort of Blackboard integration or ECC authentication integration. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We had a lot of trouble kind of encapsulating this idea to use ACC resources into a project we could present here. So the kind of scheduling thing, I think one of our mentors steered us in that direction, but that's about it. Any questions?
So yeah, I went over the description on your website and it wasn't clear if you guys were talking about giving access to the individual machines, because there was some, I think in the pseudocode, there was a mention about IP addresses. So I was thinking if we had some kind of backend, like a cloud service at the campus, then that might be a better way to, I guess, visualize that if you want to give students access to computer resources, you are invoking virtual machines and doing that instead of actually remote into a physical IP on a campus. That might raise a lot of security issues or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that was the idea. We kind of use the IP addresses in like the little demo thing that we use just to demonstrate the idea that you're connecting. But the idea would be that like the servers at the campus would just, whenever we see that there's downtime in the labs, they would be able to allocate resources to virtual machines. And so there'd be kind of a process where you could schedule. So there'd be a database that would say, oh, there's classes in these labs today, or there's not. And when they're empty, we can use these servers or whatever to spin up virtual machines and people connect that way. Yeah, not actually just like telnetting in or something.
Awesome. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. It's not easy being green. So our next project is titled HelloDear. So
our project is HelloDear, the scam for scammers. So there is a new pandemic in this world, and it is not related to coronavirus. It is related to this brand new scam called the pig slaughter scam, otherwise known as a romance scam. In 2021, this scam cost over $500 million, and it swindled many people, including many desperate and poor students. The way it works is someone will get a hold of you, let's say a fake Ukrainian refugee will contact you on, let's say, a messenger exchange app, and will use psychological manipulation based on your age, sex, and job type to attempt to extract money out of you. These guys are very sophisticated. This is not your typical Nigerian prince scam. These guys have their own development team. They have an 80-page, this image here is from an 80-page training manual. All their employees go through training. They have HR teams, they have whiteboarding, they have everything that a legitimate company has, except that they are doing everything via scams. This is maybe the worst boss you'll ever have. These people, a lot of their employees are actually kidnapped. So the more money they get, the more people they can kidnap, the more police they can bribe. It's pretty bad stuff in general. So our solution is to create a conversational AI bot that talks to the scammer. Every minute they spend talking to an AI bot is a minute that they cannot spend talking to a human victim. And our AI bot will never give them any money. And this image over here is an actual conversation with a scam script from our AI bot. So I'll go ahead and show you how it works. And I'll go ahead and show the image later too, so you can just see how the AI bot's talking to it. It's pretty good, really. So our AI bot, you just open up this application here. And what would our AI bot be without an AI bot image? These scammers often ask for an image of you because they do a Google reverse image search and they connect you with your social media on the internet, and they can get more information about you to scam you and take your money. So our face generation here, let's say I want to generate an individual, probably not a child, but we have an individual here that is generated from artificial intelligence. This person does not exist. This is built by a computer. So when they do a reverse image search, they do not actually find any on social media. So we'll use this face. I'll go back home. And I'll also type in the message ID of the scammer that we're talking to. And I'll go here home, and everything is saved. And then when I run this script, all I have to do is open up Telegram. And every time they talk to me, my artificial intelligence will talk back to them. So I'll show the screenshot of our artificial intelligence here. And as you can see, it's very difficult to tell that this is in fact artificial intelligence. And we can combine this with a delayed timer. So every time the artificial intelligence talks, there's a delay between when it talks and when we respond. So these people can be talking to our reverse scam for quite a long time. And so in conclusion, that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Does it actually work at the moment?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, it's online. Okay. I got a question from the room then. First of all, it reminds me, I just saw a movie on Netflix about Operation Mincemeat. Do you know about that, where they were deceiving the Nazi high command that we were going to invade Greece instead of Germany?
Yes.
There's a very elaborate thing like that. And there's things about this that that reminded me of that. It seems, though, the interesting aspect to me is it's kind of a denial of service attack on the scammers, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And they're using humans, and we've got bots.
Yeah.
So you do the math, it's going to be tough for them to keep up.
Well, the seriousness of it to me is, I don't know if anybody saw a news item yesterday, the day before, where there was a high school honor student who was attacked by one of these and committed suicide before the evening was out because they had scammed him into doing something and then they were demanding ransom. And he was so devastated by it and so ashamed by it that he killed himself rather than tell his parents, 17-year-old kid. So I can't stress enough how much I appreciate the seriousness of this kind of an app.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a huge business now. Very sophisticated.
I was going to ask, how many scammers have you tried this out with?
So we ran it on the script. Right now, I'm waiting to hear back from one scammer that I've been stringing along. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten back to me, probably because it's nighttime over there. But
Yeah.
I believe that she is in Malaysia.
So it tracks them as well? Tracks where they are?
Well, just based on some things that I did. I kind of feel like she's in Malaysia. If I had to guess. So I'm waiting to hear back from her.
So it's one thing for this like work like technologically, but it's another thing for it to actually work with the scammers. So you're saying that this is an effective method to combat scammers. What if scammers adopt this themselves?
That's a great question.
Would it just be bots versus bots?
You know, it could be. The way that, you know, when I've been looking at AI, it's so incredible that it's good and bad, because this AI that's come out in the last couple of years is so good that you just can't tell the difference anymore. It's not like it used to be. I mean, this thing, it's difficult to tell that it's not human. So, you know, this may be something that happens, unfortunately, and then it becomes like an arms race, and I'm not sure where that goes.
So how do we know you are really you at this point?
That is a good question, because with deep fakes, it really we are entering a world where, you know, they say believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, but we're entering a world where you maybe can believe none of what you see.
Well, any more questions? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm wondering if this, my first question is, where is the code base behind the machine learning taken from? Is that something that you guys came up with personally, or was it taken from somewhere else? And I was wondering if this could be adapted to different languages, or is it specifically made for the English language? And thirdly, since obviously those scammers are after the money of an individual, could this be used, for instance, to be able to bait other individuals that have insidious intentions, for instance, child predators?
Yeah, those are good questions. So as far as the technological question, what we found was that using a pre-trained model was the best way to do this. And there's a website called Hugging Face, which is named after the emoticon, which is like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like hugging you. We've probably all seen that. And so you can get a bunch of conversational AI bots there that are pre-trained. Now, if you were to train your own AI bot, it could take a long time. So, for example, Google has an AI bot called GPT-3, and I think it costs like $4 million to compile that or something like that, just because it takes so much computing power. And so if you're creating your own AI bot with an enormous amount of data, it's really tough to do that. So you use one of these pre-trained models that isn't as good as a custom model, but it's definitely good enough. And like you saw in that image, you just cannot tell the difference. As far as speaking in other languages, I think it can. I don't see why I wouldn't be able to. right now, probably a lot of these pre-trained models have a Western bias. So they're probably using data sets that are mostly English, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't just feed in a lot of Spanish language to create a pre-trained model. That was actually something that I tried typing in Spanish to it, and it was pretty funny because it kind of has a personality. So it kind of jokes with you back. So it was just kind of made jokes when I tried talking to it in Spanish. As far as child predator stuff, I don't even know, man. I don't want that stuff on my computer, so I'll let the FBI deal with that.
We have one last question.
Yeah, so I've recognized those similar sort of like generate a fake AI face apps before. Like, is that something that you pulled from another source or?
Yeah, so if you go to a website called This Person Does Not Exist, we basically took images from that. There's an API there where you can basically pull those images in.
Awesome. So like you use a combination of that API and the other bot that you were talking about that was pre-trained, and you sort of put these together on this website to write your script.
Exactly. There's so many things there's so many third-party stuff that we were pulling together through all kinds of APIs.
Awesome.
It's kind of a weird mix.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Yeah, so thank you so much, HelloDear. I really loved your project, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Swipe/smart. I'm not sure if I said it right, but smart.
Hello, everybody. Sure. All right, can y'all hear me? Perfect. We're going to take a second here to get set up, but I'll start introducing our product. So first off, I want to say our team is all for one. I'm Mars, Nathan, Sonia, and
Trevor.
I was thinking about your screen name, Jesus. Okay, so this is the brainchild of mine, and I was driving around one day in North Austin, and it was pouring rain. And as I'm going down the street, I cannot see anything. But as soon as I stop at a red light, automatically my wipers start scraping against my windshield. And obviously this is causing damage to my wipers, which means I'm going to need to be replacing these sooner rather than later. And I thought, it's 2022. Why don't we have wipers that automatically change the speed based on how much rainfall is hitting the windshield? The answer is we do. Unfortunately, these are on high-end model cars. I mean, we're talking about Lexuses, and we're talking about Elon Musk's cars. There's some Toyotas, but those are like high-end packages. So for your average college student, parents, people that normally don't have a lot of money, you're looking at either buying a brand new car or you don't get this feature. It may not seem like a big deal, but it can be a distraction, especially for new drivers, having to constantly go back and monitor and babysit this speed. So why don't we just remove one more barrier to safe driving? So our product is currently a controller that you would be able to hook up into your car. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on so that Nathan can tell you more.
Well, thank you, Mars. Yes, this is a very interesting product. We all got to work together and develop. I'm one of the software developers here, and I guess microcontroller handler. We basically brought a few different elements together using the Raspberry Pi Pico. Oh, okay. I guess it could sound louder. Okay. Okay, so we have the the board, the breadboard, which allows us not to have to do any soldering. We also brought in a servo, which we can set the degrees anywhere from 0 to 180. So we basically created ourselves a windshield wiper using about a 0 to 120. You know, it gives that good old clean in front of your driver's window. I also added a button, like, you know, you'll click it on. So we ran a code that'll actually process this. So we're running it in a constant loop, and it's checking to say, is the power switch being turned on here? We used a great build program out there through, I think it's a Piper Make. So it's basically a build code, and it helped us build the blueprint to get our Pico on the ground. And then we eventually worked it into MicroPython coding, and we were able to develop the code further from that into our own cleaner language that you can see here. This is a sample, and I also have it live down here. Be kind of hard to see. We don't have the really video set up, but this is a sample of it just running after being turned on, and it's moving just through its cycles. I think this cycle is holding for, let's see, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. This one's basically, this would be on the high end. So we'd be showing a lot of resistance from our petrometer, yeah, our little resistance knob here, the little blue one. So we basically use that to control the resistance that we would measure in the system. So in a bigger motor, the motor would be pushing across your windshield wiper, and when the wetness is there, you know, there'll be less resistance being shown off of the output of the voltage, because it has no force, so it's just going to be flowing the electricity. But when you get more force, it's going to work harder. Friction, yes. So more friction will be given, and by that happening, that will make the yes. So we got a few different stages we did here as we were going through this. So we have where the ohms, the detector here, the knob is able to sense anywhere from 65,000 to 0. And so based on the resistance, we put the run back into the machine to indicate kind of the sample of creating this resistant measurement. We were able to create a value that is in the range of what we got here. We have a high, medium, and low. So less resistance, slower it needs to go.
Less resistance, the faster.
Oh yeah, the lower the number, the faster it needs to go, because there's a lot more resistance going through. And then the medium means, you know, it's not as much.
The more resistance to it.
The more resistance against the motor is the slower that it needs to go, because you're catching and you're causing that friction by going faster. The less resistance that there is, that means that the windshield wipers are gliding over a wet windshield, and so it needs to go faster. Currently, we have 3 speeds. However, the idea would be to give you a very variable and customizable setting that can control at a more granular level based on your setup.
Yeah, because that's pretty much where we want to go. Right now, really, we don't have that set up to where you can actually sort of dynamically measure that resistance. So we have the what is it, the petrometer, the turny knobby guy, as the scientific term, I believe. But
potentiometer.
There we go. The potentiometer is how we've essentially kind of like manually or providing that to our device here, which is determining how fast that's going to actually be going. So where we would actually go from here is to actually, you know, devise a way to sort of dynamically kind of measure that and set it to where, you know, when you put it on the car itself, like, you know, whenever it gets like more damp or anything like that, like it would actually change that dynamically for us.
And there it is in action. It's very small, but it's there.
You can read on the screen, you know, that we have the reading coming out for the mid. So we're basically running in the mid speed. And then you'll see that I'll increase it and we'll bring it up to where it's, it'll go to low. So it should move even slower because there's going to be
very little resistance
Yeah.
at all. It's like, oh, this is easy. No problem here.
And we do have output on the screen that you can see that demonstrates what that resistance looks like. Just for simplicity here. You want to go ahead and turn it up to high?
Well, yeah, it's on high. It's just starting to kick in. It had to run through the loop first in order for it to start kicking in.
Yeah, some of our challenges here though were, I mean, none of us really knew how to work with a Pi in the absolute slightest, which is why, you know, Nathan had mentioned we used this little like make Piper thing where you basically just drag code onto it, figured out how to do how it actually get it functioning, and then worked on reverse engineering that into what we've got here. So we started pretty much from ground zero with this one, not really understanding how even to work with a Pi, which was pretty exciting, kind of working through those challenges and really coming together like at almost the last minute. So this extra 30 minutes was very nice and very appreciated. That's definitely for sure. We also have a website that we mocked up as well that I'll turn it back over to Mars to talk a little bit more about.
All right. And for our website, the most important part of our device is going to be community. Every single car that's out there has its own configuration and is going to require a very specific setup. And in order to combat the need to have someone constantly going out and searching out these cars and figuring out exactly the setup, what we can do is we can start by initializing common cars. So we could figure out what are cars that are most likely being driven today. And we can figure out exactly how to interface with that vehicle and go forward releasing the product. The community is really what's going to bring it further and push it further, because I don't know if you know this, but car enthusiasts are like ridiculously passionate. If you're interested in seeing more, Open Pilot is what I'm basing the community involvement on. They turn your car into an autonomous vehicle and you install it yourself. It's pretty cool, but the people are crazy in a good way. So these people coming together for the purpose of enhancing and building on what exists is going to help push this further. But that's not enough, because you can be a gearhead and not know code. You can know code, not be a gearhead. What we want to do is we want to make sure that these people are able to bring those two skills together, or even introduce those skills to somebody that has never had any interest in either. So our website is going to offer the ability to not only purchase a kit, which does help support the website, but it's going to offer forums, and we will consider exactly how those are implemented. Currently, the vision is the early 2000s message board system. And here is an example of how you could purchase. We don't have an actual price. This is all just put something on the website. And that kit would come with everything that you need. So then if we go to the forums, can we go to the forums? Cool. All right. So you can see here, there would be messages and topics, and you could reply to them, and you would be able to show your work in progress. You'd be able to get feedback and improve what you have already running, or troubleshoot problems. Now, the final part is going to be very essential, and that's going to be learning workshops. So the learning workshops are going to provide in-depth topics about the subjects that we need to know. So Python in 4 hours. These are just examples of videos that we pulled off of YouTube. But the real idea that I want to have is somebody, professors or educators, somebody that knows what they're doing and can provide feedback, have an interactive course with communication. And potentially this could serve to introduce certifications and bring you closer to a field that gives you the opportunity to work for large companies and do this, and remind them that even if you're only paying $15,000 on a car, you deserve safety features. There we go. Did you want to talk about the website? Okay. And we do need to optimize for mobile.
All right. Do judges have any questions? All right, I had a question actually. I guess how does this relate to the topic of increasing access to education?
So, yes.
Increase my students' access to education because I wouldn't come into class with such a bad mood after having that happen to me all the way up Lamar.
That's a wonderful thing to hear.
Seems like a remarkably sort of narrow experience.
But I kind of answer some of that. That's why we created the platform of the kits and the resources. This allows us to be able to create a community. You'll have our own like development teams, like our web development, and also like coders and micro. Is this on? Oh, we're done? Oh, okay. So it'll allow us to be able to communicate with the community, be able to reach out to people that are buying the kits or want to know more. They can come and read our forums, they can participate. And this gives us more of the educational part where we can also open share. Like a lot of teachers like to teach us here. Sometimes the best teachers is us teaching each other.
And another thing is college is really great, but I've done college twice. The first time I had no idea what I was doing and had no concept of what college could be. And as you can imagine, I dropped out and never looked back until last year, when I had a passion. I had something that I wanted to do. I had gotten involved in a project and there was a physical aspect that showed me what it could be, and I sought information. And that's the really important thing, is connecting your education experience with something that sees results, because if you don't see results, you will not pursue it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone else have questions?
Great job, by the way. It's really impressive with this project, especially because one of the things, I'm an EE electrical major from undergrad. I like the intersection of the software and the hardware. The embedded programming aspect is really cool here. I didn't get the piece about how the program will gauge the speed. Was there a sensor involved that is giving the input back?
Yes, that's basically what we're doing. The real original way we'd go, we'd have to have a different type of sensor to directly connect into the motor, or I'd have to give a little more workaround time to maybe take the existing energy coming off of it, but we'd also have to put excess pressure on a very small gizmo. So we basically showed an example of that by adding the pin, did you say that? What's it called?
Potentiometer.
Sorry, I can't say it.
Potentiometer.
The potentiometer. So the potentiometer takes a hot wire and a neutral wire. So I'm running a 5-volt, the 5-volt hot plug through it, and then just grounding it to a ground. And by doing this, we take a control wire, and that control wire is controlled by us adjusting it through the different stage of changing the ohm resistance, and that's going into an input pin on the AO part of the Pico. It's one of the accepting wires. So it's accepting the data, and we're basically measuring the voltage with that, because that pin can measure what we can get in up to 3.3 volts. So we're throwing a lot more at it than it handles, but it does well.
So the
And
voltage
looking
basically-
forward into production, so this was a turning knob that we were able to use. Looking forward into production, that data is going to come directly from the motor, and the drag that is present when your windshield wipers are scraping is going to cause the motor to have more resistance, more strain on it. And we will use a device that will be able to measure that resistance, and it will serve as the tourney dial.
Okay, so the potentiometer is basically a decoy for acting as a variable resistor to mimic the resistance. Okay, all right. So.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, thank you so much, y'all. Yeah, great job on your project. So our next project is called Transparent. Yeah, Transparent was created to clearly and concisely communicate to students their best personal paths to future financial success. So, yeah.
All right. So we are Transparent Student Finance. I guess our team name is actually Chappie, if you've seen us in the Discord. Thank you. So we decided yesterday we were going to take a little bit of a different path. We were going to go the more robotics route. And then, of course, the prompt of increasing access to education came up. And so we thought, okay, well, what's different that we need? There are a lot of applications for I guess that have to do with self-discovery as far as what career you want to go into, what college you want to go to based on, what's going to be your 4-year college experience. But there aren't a lot of applications that address what I think are one of the most important aspects that you need to consider when considering a university, which is actually finance. What are the long-term benefits or possibly ramifications of taking out debt to finance your university degree? And as many applications as I think there are for helping students think about what what their best options are, there aren't a lot that consider a wide range of fiscal factors in their life, considering let's see, maybe the loan amount and the interest rate, but also their family income, the amount of savings they have, FAFSA scholarships, as well as their monthly living expenses, things like that. And then eventually we'll get more factors in. So this is transparent. And I want to actually start with why we made it. So college tuition since 1978 has inflated about 1,272%, which is the highest of any inflation rate in a basket of goods that economists have measured in that time period. This is about 2 times faster than the rate of medical care inflation, which obviously gets a lot of attention, and about 11 times faster than the rate of a brand new car. And because of this, the United States currently holds about $1.75 trillion in student debt in the aggregate. And what I suspect is the main culprit of this is the fact that financial literacy among the younger generations is at an all-time low. So yeah, thanks. So okay, thank you. So this is why we created our app, is to help people, is to provide a simple online solution that you don't really have to log into or create an account, where you can just go and put your numbers and it'll tell you just where your financial standpoint is for a particular university. So if a university charges $27,000 a semester versus $50,000, it's going to tell you somewhat, okay, how apt are you financially in the long term for going to this university versus that one. Next chapter. We can actually go to the next one. I already talked about all this. Oh yeah, okay. So after the beta is released, we're going to begin to build a little bit more in-depth functionality to analyze and compare risk of specific schools. So we're going to stratify based on the school and actually provide a metric, much like a credit score, but on a 1 to 10 scale based on how risk averse you are in your financial situation for going to school A versus going to school B. Next slide, thanks. So we're currently in the alpha phase of development, and we don't actually have a working prototype of the web that we can show you. However, we do have the backend source code, and we also have the front end website template that we can show you, and we'll show you those in a little bit. To develop, you can stay on this one for just a minute. So on the back end, we used Python as opposed to what? Oh, thank you. Okay. TV right there, didn't even see it. Okay, so we've written in the back end using Python instead of JavaScript, which was a risk that we would be able to take. We would not be able to take had it not been for this new technology we discovered called PyScript. Just came out about a month ago, and it's a framework which allows for the development of Python apps in the browser using the HTML interface. as well as a few other technologies. And then as for the front end, we use HTML, or rather, Noah used HTML. Okay, so now we can actually go to credits. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to hand this off to Noah, the man who designed our website, real quick to run through.
Sure. What's going on? Hey, we're almost done. Hey, we're second to last, so we're almost done to this marathon of presentations. But hey, we're transparent. I know when I was an aspiring young lad coming out of high school, I had no idea what the financial ramifications are regarding college at all. Like, nobody told me what it was about. Nobody told me about loans. Nobody told me about, hey, maybe you should just take the loans out and just go for it anyways. So ideally, we just consolidate everything from out-of-state community college and in-state tuitions. You know, you put all your information in the calculator at the end, and boom, it gives you a list of like, hey, you can afford this just out of pocket and you're totally fine. You can afford this with loans if you want to go to more of an accredited school that you're accepted to. You know, because of course, certain degrees carry more weight. It is what it is. But I basically built this with the recommendation and input from El Presidente, Nate, and Rudy. Shout out Rudy, he's the man. But yeah, you can go ahead and scroll down. So basically, we would take into account your semester budget. That's just like semantics for tuition. And you would basically write down how many semesters you wanted to take, and we would also, you know, take into account your FAFSA and your GPA, because I know a lot of universities take that into account. It has criteria, and you know, very important stuff. You want to go down a little bit more. These are just mock numbers. I mean, obviously, we don't have 500 refined searches yet. You know, we went pretty ambitious, and honestly, this is kind of going to be a pet project for I think all three of us in the coming years. Because, I mean, to make this kind of website and project happen within 24 hours of a couple of beginners who have very little experience with JavaScript was a challenge indeed. But I went ahead and grabbed a few university pictures and put them all together, and you know, just a few examples. Obviously, you know, Texas Tech's got phenomenal engineering. A&M, I know a few of us are transferring there for like computer science. So in the future, we also want to calculate it in like, hey, are you going to transfer to a different university? What are the benefits to doing 2 years undergrad at a community college and then transferring over for 2 years to a different university, you know? But yeah, you can go ahead and go down a little bit farther. Ideally, this is where we put our testimonials. I'm hoping to one day have a bunch of parents here and a bunch of students that have used our service. And of course, it's going to be free. I mean, one of the things that a lot of college, future college students want are free resources. I mean, if we're talking like, hey, it'll be $20, put it behind a paywall, no one's going to use it. Like, I wouldn't. So, you know, we got Jenna and Matt and Sarah here just telling us how amazing we are. So that's fantastic. So you can go down a little bit more. And frequently asked questions are a few things that kind of popped into my head. Obviously, we went over a few of them already, like, hey, do you need loans? What do I want to transfer? One would be, I prefer to, you know, talk to a school counselor. Do you have any like advisors to help with this process? I imagine we would probably get a few of those questions in the future. And ideally, we would set them up with a school counselor to properly answer those questions, because obviously we're not financial advisors. We don't want to be giving that advice out legal. So we would definitely have like a network of advisors for certain universities that they could reach out to. and go down a little bit. This is my favorite part. Go down a little bit more.
So I'll just give you guys a quick peek at the source code.
Oh yeah.
That's what we got. Oops. Okay. And so far it looks something like this, although we're going to later integrate it into the website. And that is our project.
So our last project is EDU to you.
All right, so like I said, we are Team DRes. We're here with a project that we came up with during this. It's called EDU to You. My name is Tommy. We've got Tim, Ben, and Gage here on our team. So basically what our project is we came up with an idea to basically create a web-based app that would let students and volunteers connect who either don't have access to things or have extra resources with them. Because if there's anything that the past couple of years has taught us is that we don't all have the same access to everything. And that doesn't just mean things like internet and technology. It can mean anything from vehicles to school supplies to a number of different things. Public transportation isn't always available to people, especially with those with special needs, including during a pandemic. So this would allow those with resources like vans, cars, laptops, even things like hotspots to connect with people who may not have access to these resources. It could be anything from age, financial situations, disabilities, and like we said, access to IT. As we know, here in Texas, we might have a lot of stuff around here in Austin, but as soon as you get even 30 miles outside the city, it could get rough as far as, things like internet and access to technology, even as far as like a local library is concerned. So this would be a way for students and volunteers to sign up and just kind of meet each other and share resources. So what you would do is initially come in to the sign-in page like you would see on any other social media app. You could sign up and we would give you a username and password. Depending on what you are signing up for, you would get different options between a student and a volunteer. Students would obviously list what needs they had and what kind of help that they were looking for. Volunteers can list anything from skills and qualifications to jobs that they may have had and different resources that they have available to them. So when you sign up, you would have that option here. We just have a quick mock-up right now for some of these pages. So you would sign up and you would create either a student or teacher profile or a volunteer profile and enter in things like your zip code so you could find range. Once you do that, then you would select either students or volunteers depending on your difficulties or specialties that you have. These checkboxes would create tags on people's sites, like this is the student site we have here. You would see it would create tags here that you could have depending on your needs, and we could use a database. We originally wanted to use Mongo, but got stuck in a rabbit hole and didn't actually implement it. So later we could have tags that could cross query with each other based on student or volunteer. So the volunteer would also have similar options, and we want to lay this out similar to how people are used to seeing things in social media. So you can see here, we've got the requests and people that you could connect with here on the side. And we could also bring up alerts to let people know when they've been matched. Other features that we would want to include in here, obviously we want some sort of admin profile for ourselves. You can even add in background checks using things like ID.me to verify providers and things like that. Reporting system for abuse. Obviously, there's going to be a whole lot of abuse when you're talking about connecting two individuals together. So we need to be able to report these kinds of things and connecting people even to corporate and non-profit sponsors to help with mass amounts of resources. And as I said, we're eventually want to connect this to MongoDB in order to have as many users as we can. And it makes it just easier for querying things. Challenges that we faced, as you guys know, when you look at the code, there is literally zero security in this thing. Anybody can get into this thing at any point right now. We had a lot of problems doing some cross-site stuff and making sure that the checklist worked. and also just the way that we are putting some things together. None of us are experts in any of this by any stretch of the imagination when it comes to languages. We used HTML5, we used some Python, we used JavaScript, and we collaborated all of this through Replit. So it made it easier for us to do things here and then also go home and do things at night without having to, share too many resources. But that is our presentation for now. I can bring up the Replit real quick.
Little mock-up web app.
Yeah, it's not
fully implemented, but it's.
Oh wait, no, I already have it up.
Show you what we want it to be.
So so as I said, this is our original launch sign-in page. You'll be able to put in usernames and passwords, and then it'll eventually take you to a sign-up page here where you could put in all of the information like we showed there. And then depending on who you pick, student or volunteer, it could change what you have here for options of checklist. So yeah, we didn't have a lot of time to implement some of this stuff. Like I said, we are all really new to this, especially things like JavaScript. But
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, EDU to you. Yeah. Do we have time for one quick question from a judge? But that's it. Okay.
Sure.
What I liked about this was rather than having all of this being services, you included the user, you made the users some of the access to the education. It wasn't just the app that was doing it. You turned whoever was using it into part of that access. I like that a lot about that.
Yeah, because and I think somebody brought up with when you were talking about remoting into the accelerator, so many people, like not even just ACC, but like even myself, I've got an extra computer a laptop sitting around the house that's not doing anything. I've got a car, Chromebooks. I've got a car that can hold 4 people. If I'm coming up to ACC, somebody can't use public transportation today, well, you can just jump in with me. We can go up to the school together. So it's just a way to connect communities together, especially in this time when haven't had a lot of community. So
to add one more thing for the websites that we have, we do have a sign up sheet and it actually does work. You can sign up. It just right now only saves to the cloud. And so so it can only hold one site, and it still accesses 2 different websites based on if you're a teacher or a student or volunteer or a student.
Oh, wow. That's awesome that you were able to implement that.
Yeah, we actually use Python class, which I have almost 0 experience with, and it was all learning through documentation and YouTube.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, EDU to you. For being our final project of the day. Good job, guys. All right. So right now we're gonna have actually a quick break just for our judges to talk. It'll be literally 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. But just grab a quick snack and then come back in. Also, the first 8 people to fill out our feedback form will get a free power bank. So scan this and fill out the form as fast as you can, but make sure you still put kind of thought out answers. Like, don't stress too much. There's so what? Oh, free power bank to you. Whose phone is that? You sure? Hey, we'll do the first 8 people, but go take a break and we'll come back in like 5 to 10 minutes. Oh, I need permission. Oh, you have to use your ACC email. And remember, use your ACC email if you're scanning, but please put well thought out answers because
All right, so we're going to start out small here. Our first raffle winner.
So first we're going to do the raffle. For the raffle, it'll be based on the winners. The first winner of the raffle will be able to select from an Echo Dot 4th generation, a mini video projector, or a Black Shark RGB mechanical keyboard. So thanks y'all for participating in all the workshops and everything else, making this event a great one. So I'm going to somehow exit out of this page and make sure I don't show anything that I shouldn't be showing. Okay, Okay, this is wrong. Okay, now shuffling this. Everyone who filled out the form is in here, so we will be doing the first winner of the raffle.
Drum roll, please. And it looks like Nathan Allers.
Allers.
Where's that?
So Nathan Allers, come on down and
Please
pick up your prize.
redeem your prize.
Yeah, you'll be able to choose from the Echo Dot 4th generation charcoal, mini video projector, or the mechanical keyboard. And Patrick will help you with that.
There you go.
All right. Since we're kind of tight on time, I'm going to move on to the next raffle winner. I'm going to remove Nathan, and we're going to do the next one. So our second raffle winner will be Jason Menning. I think Jason's an online attendee, so we'll be
We will be shipping that to Jason.
Yeah, we'll be shipping that out to you, Jason. All right, and for our final,
what does he win? Does he get to choose?
Well, so the third place winner will be able to pick first. Oh, sorry, Jason. All right, our final raffle winner will be Lillian Kimmel. And I believe is Lillian in the room? So I think Lillian might also be online then. So we have two raffle prizes for both of you online attendees, and we'll be shipping those out to you. All right, so now we're going to move on to our other awards. So go ahead.
All right. So this is an individual award. The event organizers and the mentors have been coming around to help you guys. And in doing so, we've noticed a few individuals who have gone above and beyond, and some individuals who have displayed exemplary leadership. And so we've created an award to basically recognize an individual's leadership skills in this hackathon. And the best leadership award goes to...
Drum roll, please.
Dan.
And Dan will be the winner of a $50 gift card. So come down and grab it. All right.
Very good. Thank you. Find me something
All right. Ready for our next one?
All right. And we also have an honorable mention for another individual who has been hustling throughout this hackathon, who has also displayed exemplary, I guess, like honor, and has been working really hard. And this honorable mention goes to, drum roll, please, Justin
Rivers. Justin was the, I believe, the creator, or part of the team that made the Wordle clone. Let me see. What was it called again? Codle. Codle. Yeah. Wordle clone. All right. So now we're gonna move on to our best beginner award. So if your team had more than 2 first-time hackers, or 2 or more, you would be eligible for this award. So the winner of our best beginner award goes to Codle. So we'll be shipping out. What's the price for it? I believe it's the Arduinos. Yeah. All right. Do you want to announce next?
Yeah. So now for the grand prize awards, starting from the bottom, we have the 3rd place award. And this is a team-wide award. So all of your team members will be given this award and be recognized with this. And for this award, we have, it's the Razer mice, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be giving you, each member gets a Razer Ballistic X hyperspeed wireless mouse. And in third place, we have, drum roll, please. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Ed. So, so hi, Ed. Come on down and yeah. So it's actually the mice. The mice is third. Third. Yeah.
There you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have a team of 4, right?
Yeah,
Cool. So perfect. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. So you'll be able to just pick up the last one, and would you would all be able to hand it off to them?
Or do you think it would be easier if we ship it?
I think they would probably best if you guys kept it.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right. Next, for our second grand prize in second place, we have, drum roll, please. It's not easy being green.
So come on down and.
No, it's not a typo.
That's your team. It's your team name. It's canon now. So.
Oh, it's keyboards, or is it?
Yeah. See, y'all will get the keywords.
Y'all put it in the wrong order.
Yeah.
At the front or back. Okay. Wait, what?
You don't want it?
Oh, no, I do. That's the one I wanted out of all that stuff.
Oh.
Well, congratulations. It's not being green. What?
It's like the teams that are coming.
That's the third.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I kind of missed it, honestly.
I know.
We missed taking pictures for some of the teams. So.
There was only 3 copies for the second place winner.
Huh? Oh.
Yeah, for the second.
My bad. Sorry. Are you sure? All right. You gotta type this last one.
And last but not least, we have our first place winner. And in first, we have, drum roll please, the amazing
Mentor
match.
Congratulations, mentor match. And just as a reminder, all of these were judged by our panel of judges, and we took into account all different criteria like the theme and the polish and design. So just because you didn't win an award doesn't mean that your project was bad at all. It just means that maybe it didn't, that we had so many great projects, so we had to select from a bunch of different projects. So yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, we had the team of 4.
Okay. Oh, you did? I can also, here, let me get you us.
So the thing is, we don't remember the 4 teammates' names.
So if they didn't participate, then we can hold that and we'll use it. All right. So for did the 4th teammate's name participate too?
Yeah, Natalia's on mine.
And did she participate too and help you all out?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, so once again, us as the Computer Science Club would like to thank all the sponsors and everyone, all of you who helped donate and make this event possible. this is our first ever hackathon, so we definitely made a lot of mistakes, as you can tell. But yeah, we're really thankful to Mr. Supani, who made a very generous donation to help us cover the cost of this hackathon, because it wouldn't have been possible without him. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We want to give a special thank you to all of our amazing organizer team. Can we give a hand to our organizer team? And to our judges as well, and to our mentors who were here to help you all out for the entire hackathon. So really thankful to them as well. Before you all head out, could you all come down for a quick picture with everyone? If you would rather social distance, you could stay near the edges, but it would be great to have one final picture. And yeah, for the feedback challenge, we'll also be giving that. Oh yeah, also yeah.
Just as a special thank you to all our organizers, judges, and mentors. We Special thank you to all our mentors, judges, and especially our organizers for putting this together. We try to get as many people to sign a card for you. Cause like I watch y'all, like y'all are crazy. This was amazing.
All right, let's all gather around for one picture.
You know, you don't have to all go to the right flash.
Let's just all stay on the left side of the podium so we can kind of get all in one shot. We'll go up to the front.
Oh, yeah.
If you're tall, go to the back.
Working today.
Excuse me, please.
Do the cheerleader. Right, yeah.
I feel like I should do that there.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope I'm not barking in a yellow. Yeah, so.
Right, a 3, 2, 1, smile.
Say RiverHacks.
RiverHacks.
Hacks.
From a different angle.
Okay.
Out of frame. RiverHacks.
All right. Once again, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll be doing this next year again. So yeah, don't miss out.
And I just wanted to take a moment to dedicate a special shout out to the architect, our president, Nathan Liu, for this hackathon.